for the cyber attack with Russia the other day. It's sad to think right now, but probably the Russian and Chinese government know more about Hillary Clinton's email server than do the members of the United States Congress.
Republican presidential candidate Scott Walker in that debate on the Fox News channel last night, calling out Hillary Clinton and the secrecy surrounding her emails. It was a great line, but a whole lot of pundits are saying Governor Walker played it safe and, in essence, faded away during last night's debate. So what does this all mean for the Walker campaign going forward? Joining us now via telephone from Cleveland, Kirsten Kukowski, the communications director for Governor Scott Walker's presidential campaign. Kirsten, it's good that you can spend some time with us here on Newsmax Prime.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
So how would you respond to the criticism that Governor Walker played it safe last night?
Well, I don't agree. I know you're surprised by that, but no, I think Governor Walker had a great debate. He actually did exactly what we set out to do, which was introduce him to the rest of America. Not everybody, not all Republicans know who Scott Walker is. And I know just to those of us who pay attention and have been paying attention while he's been governor and everything that's been happening in Wisconsin, I know that comes as kind of a shock. But he had some work to do to introduce himself to the rest of the Republican Party, and that's exactly what he did yesterday. He was the one who was presidential. He was the adult in the room. And he kept his focus on Hillary Clinton, just like the clip that you just played demonstrated.
You know, it's interesting about Governor Walker. He seems to be unflappable, doesn't seem to get angry, answers the questions, even some that perhaps attack his positions. I'm just wondering about his demeanor away from the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd. Is Governor Walker just kind of a steady Eddie, a reliable kind of guy?
He is. It's a really good phrase. Steady Eddie is spot on, unflappable, and I think that everybody who has worked with and for him in the past will vouch the same way that I can. His lieutenant governor did an interview about a month ago on CNN where she was asked the same kind of question. What did it look like when you went through the collective bargaining union fights where you had 100,000 protesters in the state capitol? What did that look like to have the governor as the lieutenant governor? What did that look like? And she said, you know what, he is just steady, and when he's unflappable, nothing really gets under his skin, and when he makes a decision, he executes on that.
Thanks, Kirsten. You know, I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Governor Walker for an exclusive interview. I asked him what he would do as president to undo actions taken by our current president.
First off, on day one, I'd call on the Congress to repeal Obamacare, and I'd send up draft legislation. I'd already started working on plans for that. We would start specifically the day after the election so that we'd be ready on January 20th, much as I did as governor. When I made plans in advance, so on the first day I took office as governor, I could authorize the Attorney General to join the federal lawsuit back then against Obamacare. I do the same thing here, because we've got to repeal Obamacare once and for all, put patients and families back in charge of their health care decisions. I think we can do that. And in terms of Medicaid, to me, it's part of a whole plan. I talk about, details are at our website, scottwalker.com, but we talk about reform, growth, and safety. And a big part of our reform package is about transferring power from Washington back to the states and ultimately to the hardworking taxpayers in many areas: Medicaid, transportation, education, you name it. And education, a good example, how'd you get rid of Common Core? You just send the money and the power back to the states. The same thing with Medicaid. The states are much more innovative in finding ways to protect needy families, children, and seniors. As a governor, I know that firsthand. Give me the power, give any governor and legislature the power, they can do it much better than the federal government.
Jeb Bush has said he would not reverse President Obama's executive order for 5 million illegals to get work permits. Would you reverse that order?
To me, it's part of what we've said in terms of the actions this president took just a couple weeks after the election. I and 25 other governors went to court to say that the actions he did, he said himself, President Obama said, were not legal. Then he went and he did them anyway. No man or woman is above the law, and we need to go back to enforcing the laws as it is fit.
What about sanctuary cities in Wisconsin, and how does Governor Walker deal with those?
Well, I think the key is, from a presidential standpoint, remember, the laws are effective for the nation as a whole, and we need to make sure that the law applies everywhere. Whether a local municipality says they're a sanctuary city or not, we need to require every part of this country to uphold the law. We're a nation of laws. We're a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. And we need to make sure we can enforce it, whether it's in Wisconsin, or California or anywhere else around the country.
Who is your favorite president and why?
Oh, well, Reagan's hands down. I mean, I love Washington, I love Lincoln, I love Coolidge, but Reagan, he knew who he was, where he was going, and how to get there. He was an eternal optimist. It wasn't just because he was a Republican or a conservative. He had an eternal optimism in the American people. I share that optimism, and I'd love to have the opportunity to lead in the very footsteps of what he did for this country, to turn us around and put us in the right direction going forward.
And this reminder, we will have the entire interview with Scott Walker for you next week as a half-an-hour Newsmax Prime special, a conversation with Governor Scott Walker. It premieres next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, high noon Pacific Time. And there is more to come as Newsmax Prime continues.